Today may seem like uncertain times for so many of you, with the election, with a lot of the worldly and natural catastrophes that continue to go around the world, and we keep viewing it. This is not the time to be in fear. This is not the time to tap into your weakness and vulnerability. This is a time to find your resilience and your power, and also prepare for what could be yet to come. So today, I want to discuss with you how to expand the capacity of what comes into your life and handle it with ease and continue to receive peace no matter what you are going through. And I have a special guest. Her name is Raquel Hopkins. She is a certified coach, a therapist, and a capacity expert. And I wanted to bring her to the Zen Life family because this is an important conversation that we need to have. And I see that she is here, so I'm going to bring her in. Raquel is the founder of Success is Complicated. Throughout her career, Raquel has focused on moving beyond traditional coping mechanisms to empower individuals and organizations to truly thrive. She is the creator of the 4 dimensions of capacity, a transformative framework that fosters growth in 4 key areas: emotional intelligence, critical thinking, relationship building, and professional leadership. Welcome, Raquel. I'm so elated to have you in the Zen Life family. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes.
I'm
You
excited.
can you move the camera down so
Can
yes,
you see
so
me
we can see more. Yeah,
here?
it's more okay. That's
That's
better.
better?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited too. So just so the audience could get a little familiar with you, tell us like a short, quick story about your journey and how you became a capacity expert.
So I started my career in HR, and back in 2019, um, I was like successful on paper, right?
Yeah.
But something felt like it was missing for me. So I decided to get into coaching. I get into coaching, love it. I was like, I'm not going into the back into HR. And I felt like I needed a backup plan. So I always tell people that when I can't figure out my life, I have educrastination. So while I'm trying to figure out my life, I'll go back to school.
Yeah.
And that's what made me go back and get second master's in clinical and mental health counseling. And when I got there, at the time I was working as VP of HR. I was already a mom to one, already a wife, all of those things. And I just felt like what was being taught to me was not enough because I was already a good coper. So curiosity led me to learning about adult development. And when I got into adult development and it really started to talk about how we have to grow cognitively in order to meet the demands of today's modern day world, it was a game changer for me. And a lot of what was surrounded in adult development is around this theme of capacity. And I took it and I ran with it, and the rest is history.
Yes. And I found you on TikTok out of all the places. And your
That's my
message, your
spot
content,
now. That's
that's
my
your
spot.
uh,
TikTok is my spot now. I love my TikTok family.
well, now you over here with the Instagram family. Because
I
this is
am.
this is more where my energy is. I'm on TikTok, but this is where most of my what's the word engagement is. So I wanted to bring you over here because every time I see your content, it's just like yes, it was so in alignment to what I've been teaching and also growing into, because one of the things that I say is, in order for you to receive what it is that you want in life, you have to build your vessel, because your vessel needs to be strengthened in order for you to receive the abundance. And so you see how that's related to capacity, because if the
Mm-hmm.
vessel is not strong enough, it does not have the capacity to hold a certain amount of
Yep.
weight. So the more I listen to you, the more I just like, I have to talk with Raquel. I have to bring her to Zen Life because your perspective is, like I said, it's so good. So
Thank you. you. Thank you.
So what I want to talk about today is there are a few things in the spiritual community, the mental health community that most of us have been repeating, and we are thinking that it is healing us, it is helping us grow. But what you helped me see that a lot of it is still keeping you in that victim mentality. And that's not your exact words, but that's how it resonates with me, because I like to consider myself a person that is accountable, self-empowered, and takes ownership. But some of the things that I've also said, you've pointed out and been like, no, 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 that's an excuse. That is not someone that is holding themselves accountable. So these are some of the things that I want to discuss with you, and you share with the audience. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
The one of the things that I've heard a lot in the spiritual community, in the self-improvement community, is, and this is something that I've also said as well, that nobody taught me this. And the reason why we are who we are is because of the conditioning that we received back when we were children. So we're not being ourselves, we're being the conditioned part of ourselves. And you have a different perspective to that when someone says that.
Yeah. So I just, now as an adult, right? When you think about like how complex life is, it's this journey, we're all on it. When I hear like someone say like nobody taught me, one, it goes to blame. And from a therapeutic standpoint, right? Of all of the cognitive distortions, blame is a cognitive distortions. And if you get stuck there, it prevents you from growing, right? So when I hear nobody taught me or we were conditioned, um, it doesn't necessarily make sense in the sense of when you talk about owning your own life, there's no way that someone could possibly teach you all of the things that you're supposed to know for your journey, right? And when you talk about trusting your journey, to me, that's the spiritual component of it, right? Because if I trust my journey for whatever I haven't been taught or for whatever I was conditioned to do or be, um, it is a part of the process. And when you talk about it being a part of the process, I believe in the freedom and the power of choice, right? We always have choice that's available to us. That's where the accountability piece comes in. But I think what has happened, at least in the mental health industry, um, a lot of the modalities that a lot of us default to as therapists is what we refer to as psychodynamics or talk therapy, as some people may recognize it, right? And some people tend to focus on psychodynamics, which is looking at the unconscious mind and trying to figure out what has occurred in the past that would have you operating and or behaving the way that you're doing in the present. And what we don't know is there's no right or wrong way in terms of approaching people. The way that I choose to work with people is pulling from all of those different modalities, because just like if you decided tomorrow that you wanted to create your own modality, you could. So there's no absolute truth. And so I think that we have to be mindful of when we're saying like, oh, well, you're this way because you're this way. Like, there's no way that I can tap into your mind and say, based off of the past, this is why you are the way that you are. And I think that when you start to understand as children are powerless. Like, you don't get a lot of freedom of choice because most of the times your parents are dictating and guiding you in terms of what's appropriate and what's not. That's a part of being a child, right? And I think today we're learning that you want to create more space for freedom, but most of us are rooted in we're trying to raise our children to be a decent human being in the world and life, right? And even when you're doing a great I tell you just tell you a story. I remember hearing, I don't know what generation you would consider it, but when I was interning, someone said, I'm in therapy because my parents provided me too good of a life. And I was thinking in my head, like, that can't be possible. So it tells you that the way that we perceive the world and our experiences around us like that's one thing that you have no control over. And so for me, the nobody taught me or we were conditioned, it eliminates and disregards that we all have the power and the freedom to choose at some point, right? So to me, that conversation becomes more and more irrelevant as you recognize and lean into the power to choose. And nobody taught me, everybody is always still learning. So to think that someone would know, like, I need to teach Raquel these things because all of these things are going to be important. People are teaching you based off of where they currently are and what they feel is valuable. So I think that it eliminates the need to judge people. Um, and when we stop judging people, it helps us not judge ourselves as well. I think that there's a lot of grace that's not extended just in general to people. So that's why I'm not a fan of the nobody taught me this and nobody, or I was conditioned this way. Unless you don't have the power to choose, then that statement is relevant. But if you have the power, and that would be my question, do you have the, what choices are available to you today based off of the things that you believe were not taught to you? Because usually when you make those statements, you have already decided that whatever you've seen, something doesn't align with you. And it's kind of cliche, right? When they say like all of the answers lie within, right? And if all of the answers lie within, right? I mean, if all of the answers lie within, what are we talking about? Nobody taught you or you were conditioned to do a certain thing. Because if all of the answers truly lie within, I know that when um my mom would yell at me. I'm just using this as an example. If my mom yelled at me and it didn't make me feel good, that I'm going to choose to do something differently because you feel that here. It's not about what you were taught or what you were conditioned. And children feel that very early on too, which is why the minute that they become adults, like, and this is why we say, I can't wait to be grown. I can't wait till I can make my own choices. And then you get the freedom. And what we do is we go back and we talk about the past. And I'm not saying that the past does not matter, because it does, but it depends on what we're talking about. When you're dealing with like trauma, like certain things like that, yes. But when you're dealing with people that are just making transitions from childhood and maybe they didn't agree with certain things, it could have been better. The transition from a child to an adult is a big transition, because everything that you did as a child was based off of external circumstances. You relied on your parents for everything, and then it switches. To me, it's the biggest transition that we'll ever go through, because now you need to figure out life for yourself. And I say that when I hear people say nobody taught me or we were conditioned, it's usually a red flag, and not in a bad way, right? That you're stuck, you're figuring out life, you don't really know where to go from here. You don't know if for whatever it is that you feel here, is it right? Would it be right for me? Is this the right thing?
I think when I started saying that, it made me look into, okay, I wasn't taught this, but what skill is required for me to master this? And then if I use it on someone else, this is where I can have that compassion and less judgment, because I know that just like the rest of us, we weren't taught a lot of things, but I didn't realize when I was saying that to the audience that they could use it as an excuse to stay in the thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is the distinction. But you said so much, especially when you said about like we are equipped with everything, but then at the same time we wasn't taught. Like that is the biggest thing about the spiritual community. The spiritual community says a lot of contradicting things, and we're not about to go into that because this will be a long live. But yeah, we don't realize that a lot of the things that we say are contradictory to a truth that we believe in.
Yep.
Okay. So the next thing. Do you have anything
Okay.
else you want to add
No,
on to
no,
that?
no. That
Okay.
was great. That was
Okay.
great.
Okay. Good. One thing that you said was journaling, affirmations, meditations, breath work, and boundaries are coping mechanisms made to help you survive but not thrive. If
Yep.
anything, you are losing your resilience with these things.
Yep. So let me just say, because the TikTok video is, you want people to click on it, right? And I would say for the most part, people understood exactly what I was saying. And there were some people that were probably relying on these coping mechanisms, and it bothered them. Now, having said that, we all need a foundation, right? Because going back to what we said, and it's not possible for someone to teach you everything that you need to know. So, for whatever skills that you are learning that's going to support you, you may have to rely on them. But when you talk about just how complex like life is, the world is, navigating uncertainty, and some of the things that you were speaking about when you started the live, for example, we take affirmations. You can affirmation all day long and say I'm enough, but if you don't really hold that belief, it doesn't really matter. I don't care how many times you can write it on your mirror, you can walk by it, you can have sticky notes, but if you don't really believe it, like that's all it really is an affirmation. So I focus more on, let's shift from the affirmation to it actually becoming a belief. And in order for it to actually become a belief, what you have to do is you have to start going in spaces where those affirmations are challenged. Because if you seclude yourself, it makes it difficult for you to develop that muscle of resiliency. Boundaries. Did we say boundaries on
We
this
haven't
too?
talked. That
Okay,
is
okay, okay,
one of
okay,
them.
okay.
But if you want to go into that, we
I'll
can.
wait.
But
I'll
okay,
wait.
okay.
So when you think about these coping mechanisms, they're not bad, but if is your way of doing life, it's gonna make it very difficult for you to thrive, because coping mechanisms are instant relief, right? You think about instant gratification, right? If I start to feel overwhelmed right now and I don't know how to navigate this conversation, so I close my eyes right now and just start breathing, you're gonna be like, Raquel, there's people on this live. They want to hear you, but if I feel like this is just too much for me and I close my eyes and I just start breathing, maybe you will hold space for me. But the point is, I have disconnected and I'm no longer engaging with life because I've shut down because this is hard for me. So the coping mechanisms are also rooted in fear, avoidance, and all of those things. However, if it is the foundation that you're needing to start where you are, it is okay. I'm just saying, don't rely on that long term, because you may be missing out on opportunities to grow.
She is a therapist, and as you see, she does not sound like the typical therapist that we are used to hearing, because a lot of the popular therapists, I feel like they speak to the weakness in us. And when I hear you speak, I hear you calling into our strength and bringing it out. And so what, before we go to the next ones, what are some tools and what are some services that you offer?
So I offer one-on-one coaching, and I have a course that's in my bio, and it's Master the Art of a Thriving Life. And that course is, and it comes with a community. So people that are working towards thriving. So I consider the course to be like the basic foundation, right? Like I need to understand like your views on adulting responsibilities, because like most of us rather spend our lives adulting rather than thriving. Because you see all of the memes on Instagram when people are like, I'm juggling this, I'm juggling this, and I'm juggling this. That's when people are, most people are caught up in managing their lives versus leading their lives. So for me, the course is about dismantling some of the beliefs that we hold about responsibility, adulting, having you start to really look at all of your life roles. So it's the course, and then I have one-on-one coaching, and I'm working on some other things behind the scenes. So that's it right now. And the course is $147. So it's reasonable. I know that a lot of people are used to going to therapy, and I will say that the coaching services, like my clientele right now, are doctors and people in leadership. So it's a bigger investment than what you would typically pay for either therapy or like a digital course or something.
Okay. Okay. And just going back to the coping mechanisms, I think it's so important for people to identify if they are in a surviving mode or thriving mode. because when you are in the survival mode, you do a lot of avoiding.
Yep.
Because people would like to think that, oh, and this is where we're going to go into boundaries, because people think because I ain't talking to that person, I push that person in my life, and because I have boundaries, that's not thriving. That's actually you're surviving because you don't know how
To
to
navigate it.
handle it. So, and I tell people, you kicking somebody out your life, it is alleviating the situation, giving you relief, but you're avoiding, because maybe what your character needs is to address it and to affirm and create a standard what how this person can treat you when you're there. But when you completely kick them out, you're just avoiding, because eventually when that person comes back, whatever you stuffed under the rug, it's gonna come back. So going into boundaries, the thing, the statement that Raquel said is boundaries without self trust will always keep you in defense mode.
So my take, I am not a fan of boundaries. I do not work on my clients on boundaries. Um, because I'm focusing on you developing your capacity for the foundation of everything, which is self trust. So when I think about boundaries, for example, boundaries, again, just like the coping mechanisms that we just spoke about, it offers immediate relief to something that is uncomfortable to you in the moment. And as much as people like to say they are not there to control other people, I always ask, well, why did you create a boundary then? Like, if they're not to control, what did you need it for? Who did you end up creating it for? And most people will say, well, I created it for myself. And I'll use an example. Like, if you say, I do not take calls after 5 p.m., right? Because maybe it's based off of, in the past, you've been burnt, overwhelmed, and you're experiencing burnout. So, again, it's based off of something that has happened in the past, which means that now you have established a defense mechanism or something to protect yourself. Because if I do answer calls after 5 p.m., then it says that I may end up being burnt out again or overwhelmed. I don't hear self-trust in that anyway. In any way. So when I think about if we're calling it boundary, right? um and using the same example, it's less about me saying that I don't take calls after 5 p.m. and me saying that at any given moment, no matter what life throws at me, I have the freedom to choose and decide how I engage with whatever's in front of me. That could be I'm answering the phone because I know that Grace is only going to stay on the phone for 2 minutes. She just usually has a really quick question and I can get right back to my family. Or Bob is calling now, and I know that Bob is long-winded. Bob usually can wait until Monday. And it creates this space for flexibility and adaptability for you to know that whatever life is throwing your way, throwing at you, that you can respond in the moment without having to default to protecting yourself. And I always tell people that when you think about mental health, because I think that that's the biggest conception about mental health, is that it's something that you're supposed to protect. When people say that they're protecting their mental health, what I hear is I'm protecting how I think, feel, and behave. If you're protecting how you think, feel, and behave, then how do you create space for growth? Because it says that how I currently operate and do life right now, it's okay because I feel safe or I'm comforted right now. So I'll protect my mental health. I'll protect my peace. But when you do that, you don't give your mental health an opportunity to do what it's naturally inclined to do, which is be dynamic, be adaptable, be flexible. Your mental health is not static. So Grace is like, I see you just like you got a lot of questions. I can see your wheels are spinning. You go for it. She was like, I didn't expect the mental health thing to pop
Well,
up in here. I wasn't
no,
expecting.
I have it on the sheet.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the mental. I didn't show that to you, but yeah, I did want to talk to you about that too. But I'm so glad where you segued into that. But I do have a question, because I know how some people think is okay. So that we are clear in the understanding of what you're saying, I'm going to ask, because I don't want to use the word boundary, but I don't know what other word we could use, because
Trust.
I think boundary. Huh? What'd you say?
Trust.
Okay, trust is a good
Mm-hmm.
word. So what if a person don't want to be flexible? What if they're saying this is what I want, and they communicate to the person, this is what I want, and then they continually don't give it to you? Where is the self-trust in that then? How would one handle that?
I think some of it is in acceptance, right? I think that so much of life is about surrendering and letting go. And it depends on what we're talking about too. Because I mean, are we talking about a situation that's complicated, or are we talking about a situation that is toxic and really has the ability to plague your mental health? A lot of stuff that we talk about today is not necessarily toxic, it's complicated. Like if you know you're going to your family member's house and you got that one auntie or uncle who's going to ask you, when are you getting married? When are you having kids or whatever? I think that the trust piece for me would be, or this is at least how I am, right? I already know that she's going to ask, when are you having kids? When are you going to get married? Because based off of her worldviews and how she sees life, at this point, she thinks, or he or she thinks that I should have children, right? So it becomes less about what she's asking me and disrespecting me, because I think that it has to be, you have to ask, what bothers you so much about how another person is showing up? And usually there's some judgment, because I always say that life mirrors right back at us what we already have going on. So maybe it's that you find it really hard to find good men, find a good man, whatever it may be. And because you're struggling with that, you already have this narrative that I'm never going to find anybody. And if you have that narrative, all that family member does is ignite it more and more and more. And that's what you're bothered of. That's what you're bothered about. So I think that it's more so about surrendering and letting go of these narratives that we end up creating behind whatever stories we create about what other people are saying. Because I mean, even in child, like people are always gonna talk. Like I think we have to define like what it means if someone is disrespecting me versus you and I come from two different places and you just may not understand me. Because I do think that when I think about, so I would consider myself, if you say like what type of therapist are you, Raquel? I am more existentialism. And when I say more existentialism, operating from the belief that there are four demands that we will all face that has the ability to plague us. One is death, which means that you're going to lose not just physically losing people, but losing friendships, ending careers, leaving jobs, right? Freedom. While we all want freedom, freedom is overwhelming, which is why a lot of us are actually overwhelmed. We want freedom, but we don't really know what to do when we get it, because freedom comes with responsibility. Isolation means solitude. Like at some point, you're going to have to go within. And when you go within, you're going to have to be okay with being misunderstood, people not necessarily understanding your choices. And if you're bothered by how the external world is always responding, you're always going to have a rocky core. And the fourth one is meaninglessness. Life has no inherent meaning. Life only has meaning once you assign something to it. That's some, like when you give the example about meeting with a family member, you have assigned a meaning to whatever that means, and based off of that, that is what has created the issue. Versus,
Mm-hmm.
I know that my aunt loves me. She can be a bit much, but I am uncomfortable with this situation because of X. Or is this really like a genuine threat to me? And that's you're gonna see, because I'm recording content this weekend, and I'm going to talk about the difference between a genuine threat versus opportunities for growth. Because we're also having a lot of these conversations around like a regulated nervous system, and I think that the conversations are misleading as well. So I know that was long-winded. Hopefully I answer your question. If not,
Well,
bring
I
me
just
back.
no, that was really good. No, because this is something that I had to unravel with when I used to have clients a lot as well, when we were talking about boundaries. And this is something I came to the conclusion couple of years ago, because I'm all about boundaries and having the standard, and not gonna let anybody do what they want to do and say what they want to
Mm-hmm.
say. But then at some point, I was like, I feel like having a whole bunch of boundaries is keeping me from receiving what I genuinely want, was true connection with others, and being able to be myself regardless of what other people think and feel about it, and accept them for being themselves, and not taking it personal when it's in conflict with who I
Yep.
am, you know. And so that's why I think this conversation is well rounded for me. I don't know about any of y'all, but it's about self trust, trusting. It's always about trusting, you know, yourself. And I came to this conclusion not with the words, but, and I'm not going to say exactly because I don't want to say the person out loud. But there was a situation that I've been handling a few years now, and with this person, they wanted my attention, a lot of my attention. They wanted to call me all the time, always want to talk to me all the time. And, you know, being a wife and a mother and having a life, you don't got time all the time sitting on the phone talking to somebody about nothing. So it got to the point where I was telling this person, that, look, you can call me on this day, or you can call me at this time. I was doing the same thing. And then when we talk, we could talk about this, but you can't talk about that. Because because this person was very triggering to me, but this person I felt at the time was important for my growth, but I wasn't able to see like I
Yep.
wasn't able to see that part. Yeah, I was blinded by exactly what I was doing. And it took me a few years. And I promise you, Raquel, this person at first would make me feel like that they're listening and they're respecting my boundaries.
Mm.
But then eventually they end up doing what they normally do because that's who they are. And so it took me I'd say about good 6 years to get to this point. I literally realized it this year, actually, this month, was that I, when I don't have control in a situation, I will block that person or that thing out of my life,
Mm-hmm.
instead of seeing that this thing that's in my life is here to help me grow and build my character.
So
And
much of life is that.
all of life is like that.
Every corner, every corner.
And you know what? I've accepted that, you know, a lot of what I think that is empowerment or boundaries and standards was just a defense mechanism of me trying to be in control.
Yep.
And once I let go of the control, I allowed that person to continue to be themselves. They can continue to call me, but then when I choose to be ready to talk to them and receive them for who they are, I'll pick up. I'll call you back.
Yep.
But until then, I'm in my peace. I'm happy,
Yep.
and I ain't worried about what you're doing, what you're not doing. And since I've done that, Raquel, that has opened up in other parts of my life, that it was revealing to me that, wow, you were really trying to control
Yep.
this.
Yep. That's why I say it's surrendering, right? Remember when you asked me that question earlier, it's like you have to surrender, you have to let go, because so much of it is rooted in control and wanting immediate relief. We don't want to experience any discomfort these days, and all in the name of our mental health. But I always say that we don't understand mental health. That's the issue. We don't understand that your mental health is dynamic. It has the ability to be flexible, to adapt to whatever's happening in front of you. But if you don't exercise that muscle to be adaptable, you can't get to the awareness that you just spoke about. It makes it difficult to do that.
Yeah. And speaking of mental health, I think I heard you said we are mental health in ourselves to death.
Oh, I had said that the language that we use today is misleading from a mental health standpoint. So when I say misleading, like when people hear mental health, people automatically become sensitive to it as if it's this fragile thing. If this were mental health in my hand, right, people would be like, "Oh my gosh, it's like glass. We can't break it. We have to protect it." And mental health is not fragile. It's just something that we all have, um as opposed to mental illness, right? Like, not everybody lives with a mental illness, not everybody will experience a mental illness, but we all have mental health. And mental health is exactly what I said: how you think, feel, and behave. If you wanted to break it down to like simple terms, how you think, feel, and you behave, and how you think, feel, and behave is or should be dynamic, evolving, and adapting. So I think that we have so much language today that people are misusing that. And that's why I spoke to like I think I may be getting ahead here, but the toxic trait is being seen, heard, and validated these days, right?
Yeah.
But we feel that we should be seen, heard, and validated, because if we're not, it impacts my mental health.
Mm.
Not necessarily, because if you're going on a journey of self-discovery or going inward, it may be very well likely that the people that didn't understand then, they could come back around in 5 years once you have decided that, like, this is really what I am doing, because it happens all the time. Like, and I think that that's very misleading in a lot of ways, because if you don't see me, hear me, feel me, then you must not be good for my mental health. No, it actually may be the very thing that you need for your mental health, because it's a sign that you've become very static and you're not adaptable to whatever's in front of you. So I yeah. I can
So,
go on a tangent about that. So
well, as a therapist, what is the one thing besides what you said? That's another thing that when it comes to the mental health, because if you can't say nothing no more on social media without anybody crying, anything that's
you
going on, if you have a different opinion or if you're speaking strongly about something, people say this is harmful. Even when TikTok was about to be banned, I literally saw people on here like, this is for my mental health. So what are you saying? If this TikTok is gone, that's it for your life?
Well, TikTok provides
Happening?
comfort, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I say, when we don't understand what mental health is, we just misuse it. We just have language now and we just say anything. Like, we literally just say anything. When you say this is good for my mental health, basically what you're saying is, and I know the way that I scroll through TikTok, I can tell you that some days, I guess it is good for my mental health, in the sense of, like, sometimes it brings me joy. I find videos where I'm laughing, like laughing, right? So how I feel in that moment is probably happiness. Have I really actually grown at all? Like, my thought process or my critical thinking has been challenged? Absolutely not. um has my behavior changed? No. So I think that we have to look at it collectively, right? Like, if something is just making you feel good, we want to question that. If something is not challenging the way that you think, and we don't have to, because I'm not saying that you have to look for things to challenge the way that you think, right? Like, you just came across a video on TikTok and you saw me and you were like, that was me challenging your mental health, challenging the way that you currently view life or do life. And you said, I'm interested. That was a great opportunity of, like, this is me challenging my mental health.
Because it's just like there's so many words like
Oh
narcissist
my
and
God.
mental health, and it's just like so many
Trauma,
things
that
that
one.
which
I
one
think
to
you're
say.
gonna love my
Trauma.
content that I have coming. It's probably gonna be about a week or so, but I think you're gonna, because I break down like what trauma is, like, and even like words like trigger versus, like, you know, trigger. Like, a lot of us are bothered. We're not triggered per
Okay.
se. And when you think of triggers, I think of people that have actually struggling with like PTSD and like trauma. Like, when you're triggered, it's almost like, for example, if you were just in the recent LA fires and you're at someone's home and you were to smell them cooking breakfast and you smell fire, that's a trigger. I'm
Okay.
bothered because bother is more so along the lines of you're irritated or annoyed with like
Mm-hmm.
everyday life and or challenges, right? Like,
Okay.
you're not having these strong reactions to things that are not necessarily there. That's the difference between a trigger versus bother. And I'm so passionate about that because you actually really do have people suffering and actually suffering in silence now because the conversations have become so diluted that the people that actually really need the support, they don't even have language to really explain what they're saying because everybody has trauma now. Everybody is triggered now. And it does a disservice to the people that are actually struggling. Most of us are just struggling with everyday life challenges in general. And I remember one thing when I decided to become a therapist, the one thing that stood out to me was because I read every textbook. Like I love reading. And the way that I was interpreting the information was just always interesting to me. Like, and maybe because I didn't come out like from bachelor's straight into the program, I came in with like life experience. I was already working at the executive, like, so it just didn't register in the same way because experience, environments, and all those things. But it said, you know, therapists are not experts in mental health. Because what that would mean is if we were experts in mental health, we would know the right way that you should be thinking, feeling, and behaving for all situations, right? But humans are complex. What
Hmm.
we are experts in is helping you fa- facilitating change or growth as you navigate transitions that have the ability to affect your mental health. So when I say transitions, I'm not just thinking of big transitions, right? I'm thinking about if you move your house from this block to the second block, right? The neighbor that used to come across the street to check on your parents are no longer there because now they're around the corner. That's a shift. That has the ability to affect the way that you think, feel, and behave, whether it be like I'm at work now and now I have to always worry about my elderly parent that's home. That affects your feelings, and maybe you can't, in terms of how you behave, maybe you can't focus on working the way that you used to. So I say that transitions are extreme. When you make a if you move from one state to another state, when you decide to go from as an individual contributor into a management role, your leader changes, like all of those are transitions. And when you really think about it, transitions are happening every single day. If you're in your car right now and you were taking the route and it told you that it was going to take you 30 minutes to get there, but now there's a car wreck, a transition just happened because what was intended for 30 minutes has now turned into an hour, and then now your stress reactor can become triggered or alerted, I would say alerted in this case, and now
Yes.
that may be impacting your mental health altogether.
Yes.
So I always tell people, think about transitions, because we don't when we become parents, when we decide to become wives, like all those are transitions. It's not that you're just, now I'm a wife, now I'm a parent. Like, these are new things. Like, life just changed for you. And because life just changed for you, you don't necessarily have the skills. You don't necessarily have the foundation of trust in what this new situation is.
Hmm.
When you become a mom, you don't know anything. You don't know what type of mom you're wanting to be. When you become a wife, you don't really know anything. Like, those are transitions, and they have the ability to plague your mental health. That's what we're experts
Yeah.
in. Helping you navigate transitions that have the ability to plague your mental health.
Yeah. But not getting stuck in that because it's a transition, or you like the skills and self trust. It's becoming aware of the new transition and then moving forward into that.
Exactly. And that's what my course is, wants you to be aware. Like, let's think about some of these life roles that you didn't even know that you had. A lot of us are juggling several roles and we have no idea that we're actually doing it because we just move. Like, and that's why I'm talking about the autopilot, right? Like, we want more peace, we want more joy, and you don't even realize that you've added on. You keep asking for more and you haven't shown life that you can handle what's right here in front of your plate. Like, what's right here on your plate. And I always say that I don't believe that life rewards you with peace when you currently are operating in chaos. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, something has to change. And that's where capacity comes in, right? Who do I need to become in order to navigate the life that I desire, the life that I want, and the life that I have actually chosen in this present moment.
Yes. And because I think what happens is we are so focused on the desire and the result that we are forgetting the process that's going to get us here from there. So, a good example of that, right? Like right now, I have Invisalign. I just got this, like, I think the beginning of the week. When I tell you I've been desiring to have braces for over 10, 15 years. And all I wanted was to straighten my teeth and get the braces. Now that I had them, now I'm in the process of experiencing the capacity of how much I can endure. Because like even like with the speech impediment, it is a part of my capacity to allow my teeth to get straight. And then realizing the pain and uncomfort that I'm feeling because my teeth may not have the capacity to stretch. And in the
Yep.
meantime, I didn't think of all that. I was just thinking of, oh, I want braces and I'm going to have straight teeth. But in the process of it, like all the uncomfortableness that will occur, and I just think that in life, like I don't think that, speaking of wordplay, I love that you said that we may not be triggered, we just be bothered. But I also think the way that I could look at this situation like, oh, this is traumatic. Oh, my teeth, I can't sleep, I could barely eat.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could look at that as trauma, but it's
Yep.
not. It's a part of the process. I'm not struggling. It's a
Mm-hmm.
part of the process. So we use these words when we're in our process of receiving what we want,
I
and
love that. I
realizing
love
that
how you said that.
yeah, and we're
I love how you
creating
said
these
that.
and we are creating these barriers with these words, with the mental health. And like you are becoming, you got to chisel away
Constantly,
the rough edges.
constantly, constantly, constantly.
Yeah. So that's why I'm on camera now, y'all. Cause I'm like, it's part of my process. I'm gonna be talking like this for the next 24 months. Get used to it. It's like I am challenging myself to
Continue
be
to show
uncomfortable.
up and engage with life despite the discomfort that you're experiencing.
Yes, absolutely.
Kudos
And
to you. It sounds like you have the capacity. You have the capacity for those new teeth that you want.
well, if I don't have the capacity, the orthodontist have to pull out 4 teeth.
Oh God.
But that's a part of the process. That's
The
a part of
lesser
the
of two
process.
evils.
Now you did touch on, this was the last topic I wanted to discuss with you, was about the toxic trait, wanting to be heard, felt, and seen. You did brush on that, but I wanted to dial back into that for anybody that didn't hear it, and just for us to expound a little bit more. Now that's one of those things in the spiritual, as I feel like, and I feel like the spiritual community and like the mental health, like more like scientific,
Mhm.
school institution way of becoming. I feel like they're merging, and I don't know if that is helpful,
What do
because
you
I
mean when you
feel
say merging?
like merging to the point where like the mental health, like where they're more like scientific in research and studies, and more
Mhm.
concrete. I that doesn't seem like to be seen, felt, and heard. I almost feel like that's more one of these spiritual concepts of
Okay.
self improvement almost, because
So
I
I
hear
think
that a
it's
lot.
spiritual. So the scientific piece of it is science says that if you're not felt seen and heard, right? Research says that you're going to struggle with your mental health. That's the science piece of it, right? The
Right.
spiritual piece of it for me is oftentimes your greatest transformations come from when you're not felt seen or heard, because being able to go through life and being misunderstood offers like this great, and I'm speaking from personal experience, like the freedom that comes with that is like amazing. So if I were to listen to science in the sense of, because a lot of the science aspects of it would have you looking for places to belong, and the more that you're looking for places to
Mm.
belong, it makes it
Okay.
difficult for you to find your home within, like within, right?
Okay. Okay.
So the science piece, and that's why I struggled as a therapist too, because I'm like, now I respect science, I respect everything because I understand how it's all interconnected, right?
Mhm.
However, I know that if I decided to grab a hypothesis right now and I wanted to go and prove that it was facts, I could, because that's just what scientists do in the sense, like, but I also know that science, it's like, it's not a, there's no absolute truths. It's just information that supports you in understanding something. It does not make it a fact. It does not make it a truth. I like to say the big T and the little t. Like right now it is 6:53 here, and it's completely different time where you are right
Yeah.
now. So um and I think that that's the science piece. The spiritual piece of it is, we don't have to be felt, seen, and heard. You need to be able to do those things for yourself, and when you can do those things for yourself, what ends up happening is life affords you all of the people that are supposed to see, hear, and feel you. I don't remember which word I left out, but that's the
Heard,
spiritual
felt.
component of it. Yep, heard, felt,
Oh,
and
I
seen.
love that you. Oh, I love that you. Thank you for that, because you're absolutely right, and you're absolutely right, because I okay. So it's the opposite. It's almost like the spiritual community is trying to do more of what the scientific part. When at the end of the day, spirituality will tell you you don't need
You
any of that.
don't
Like
need
you're
any of
already
that.
equipped with everything you need to know.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly,
yes.
exactly,
Oh, yes.
exactly.
Did y'all hear
It-
that? Press one if you just picked up what she just dropped. Okay? I am so thankful that I trusted my intuition by reaching out to you, because you know how social media is. Everybody acting like they support each other, but they not. They busy. They booked. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna trust my intuition. I'm gonna reach out to her and see what happens. And it just felt like the flow between you and I was easy. It was natural. It was familiar. It's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Because I don't know about you, but I feel very comfortable as though I know you, and it's just a good flow. And I think that when you trust yourself, that's how life is
yep,
always going to show up. So I
yep,
just wanted to let you know that I'm really enjoying our conversation and talking with you for the first time, and I hope this is just the beginning.
yep. I the same. Like, yeah, if I had a boundary for all of the people that are DMing me now, it would have not created the space for this connection, probably, because it's like everybody's gonna reach out now because you've said some hot topic. But I trust that I can handle, and we figured it out. I mean, what, you messaged me, what, 3 days ago, and I'm like, let's do it. You Friday, that works, let's do it. Like, yeah, because I mean, exactly. So the same, and the same, the feelings are mutual.
Yeah,
I
and there was
feel,
a
I
time.
felt seen and heard. Let me.